I guess I'll do the intro. So massive thank you to Maree Connor for coming and having a good chat to us. So I'm the race director of Brisbane Trail Ultra, and Maree is the BTU 100 mile winner. And yeah, look, we were super blown away by Maree this year. I think you took a huge chunk off the record, a massive 4 hours, more than. And it was just such a strong field from the women. I think we had like an over 80% success rate with those chicks finishing in the 100 mile, which we were so happy and blown away with. But I'd just like to introduce you properly. You're a mum of two, and you also came up from New South Wales. So how old are your kids? Because we'll get that one into perspective, because I'm a mum as well, and I understand how hard it is to train and get everything done.
My little one's 5 and my big one is 7. Graduated from pushing and running in the prams now, so now we're on the bikes. That's how we manage. Yeah, I actually only started running properly probably the first day of January in 2018, but that's a story in itself.
So like, we were super lucky to get you up to the Brisbane Trail Ultra this year. You're from Newcastle, so it meant that you were kind of just out of that awful Sydney lockdown, the Delta strain lockdown that is only just finishing, like kind of now with heavy restrictions. How stressful was it for you at that time?
It was terrible. And I have a friend who we were planning to run this race together, and he lives in Sydney, and he was the one that actually pointed it out to me in the first place. And then he was in lockdown, so my thought was, oh, I'm just going to go anyway. It's my hometown. I'm from Brisbane, and moved away in '95, so I haven't been back for a really long time. But you know, I think the week leading up to that, I'd said to my dad, who was going to come and watch my kids for me, and then so my mum and dad were coming in, and then I was staying at my sister's, and I'd had all these plans in place. And then I think a couple of days before, they were starting to close in on us and whether we were allowed to move. And then Brisbane started having some cases, and it was only the Tuesday before the race where we knew that it was still open and they weren't going to make a decision until after the weekend. So we got in the car and we drove as fast as we could within.
Yeah.
And we were there by the Tuesday night, which gave us 2 days to take a breath before the race, you know, and have a look around and see what. Haven't been to Brisbane for quite some time now. And then actually my husband had to fly home on the Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. He saw me finish. He came and saw me at the finish line, but he then had to go with my mum to the airport to fly home to go to work. And then my dad drove me home. I was not in the best shape to drive. And then he almost got locked out to get back because the restrictions were within the week. It was only the Tuesday to the Monday, and then everything closed down again. So I was really lucky, really lucky. It was quite stressful at the time.
I don't know how I would have coped. You would have just had to put yourself in your own little bubble and keep an eye on stuff, but just, I don't know, like focused on what you had to do at the time and just probably shut everything out, because I could just imagine how stressful it must have been.
Well, I think just having the last 18 months the way we've had it anyway, if you plan that nothing's going to go ahead and hope that it does, I guess then I've had to change the way I think. I've never really been one to cope with that sort of change, but the last 18 months, I think we started the very first COVID I had a 40th birthday party planned, and then COVID restrictions hit and that put on hold, and that's nearly, you know, it's coming on 2 years ago now. So, and we still that, and I don't see that happening now, but you know, like it is what it is, I guess. So roll with the punches, I guess.
I guess that's one of the beautiful things about the races, is that it did give us all something to focus on.
I was extremely lucky, and where I live in Newcastle, I've got access to some amazing trails. I wouldn't call them big hills by any means, but 10 minutes from home here, if I drive, I can do 40, 50, 60 Ks if I wanted to spend, time out in the hills. It's so close to town, but also I can go into town. In the middle of Newcastle is a reservation called Glenrock, and you can put 25 Ks worth of trails. There's so much access to me really close. No big hills and not a lot of elevation to work with. But, for me, I didn't have to go very far, and I was able to keep training like I still had something coming. And I remember being at work and saying to them, I'm not sure I'm going to get away. Maybe you might put me on the weekend shifts. So, you know, I don't think we're going to make it away. And like, so I was starting to put the plan Bs in together, because I was training like we were still going to get somewhere and go somewhere. But I also knew that it probably wasn't. Like, I was so surprised, but I was so grateful, because it's far. So
yeah, it was really tough, because we didn't know if we were going to have a race on. Even the Saturday beforehand, we got let out to start marking the course, and it probably put us maybe 3 days behind. It sounds crazy, but we got out that night, but normally we get a full day in that day. And but also the correspondence, and I really felt for everybody, because like somebody like you chose to come, but then other athletes were really scared that they weren't going to come back, be able to get back in, or they're going to have to go into quarantine for 2 weeks. And so in the end, we end up looking after everybody as much as people as possible, but it was extremely like just stressful on so many fronts. And we just had to prepare for everyone was going to come as much as possible.
I remember hanging out for your email on the Friday, thinking, because I had to work the Saturday, Sunday. I'm an after hour, like I work on after hours on the weekends. So I remember just hanging by the email, waiting for that email on Friday to come through, to whether I could ring my dad and say, we're on, you need to get to Brisbane. You know, everything's going ahead now. This is putting all the plans in, and we're shooting as soon as my husband finishes night duty on Tuesday morning. We're driving straight up. You know, that was. And I'd almost said to my husband, they're putting their course markers out. I feel like I need to leave, and not, you know, I feel like I need to leave now. I'm not going to make it. And we ended up, I took a breath and waited. And I was so grateful. I was hanging for that email, with the correspondence, which was really good from you guys. And it was sort of almost daily saying, we're hoping it's coming. And then, yeah, Friday, I think you might have changed it to Saturday. And I remember thinking, I wish it was Friday. And then I was at work and I was checking my email every 5 minutes. And when it came through, I was excited, and everyone heard about it all day. But
most of us ultra runners, it's really tough, and we have to work, you know, around your kids, but also about your work too. What do you do for work?
I actually work in emergency department. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm a nurse unit manager in the ED in one of the hospitals here in Newcastle. So a little bit stressful and lots of decision making at times. So sort of get used to making decisions in a moment with hopefully all the facts. And, you know, yeah, I've been doing that for just not the management part, but nursing itself. I've been doing that for just on 20 years now. So
I find that there's a lot of trail runners, ultra runners, who are either in medical or emergency. So I think it's a stress relief, or they're paramedics. I think it's a part of it that ultra running is definitely a stress relief for you.
Absolutely. And my husband's a paramedic too. It's the same. Yeah. Like when I started running, he has started running since. He actually came up and did the 60. I think he was in the top 10 males for the 60. And that's sort of something he does on his spare time too now. So it's good.
How would you find doing UTA and then leading into the BTU? Was that part of your training program, or?
Yeah, I did the same the year before for a 100-miler around the same time the year before. And I just found having something to progress the distance works best for me. So I won't say I use it as a training run, because it's 100K training run's a bit ridiculous, but and I did try my best, but you know, I try to step it up. It's like so I get 100. I think I did the 6-foot track, which was 45 in March, and then stepped it up to May, which was the 100K race, and then step it up to July. And that's sort of the last 2 or 3 years. That's how I planned the year, and then I don't do much for the second half of the year.
But would you then lead into, I spotted in one of our emails, our correspondence, that you're doing Coast to Cosy. Is that right? And now you're starting that training?
Yeah. So, and again, then I use the mile training, like I use the 100-mile training for that to then kick off the back of that to keep the momentum of the endurance going. So I did the same thing last year. I did it last year off the back of a miler in July. And we don't get selected or invited into that race until August, September. So you've got a little bit of a lull after the miler to take a bit of a breather. So it lets you reset and refocus and get everything together mentally. And then once I got selected for that last year, then I started a big block of training sort of start of September last year. And so I've done the same again this year. I've tried to stay with the fitness coming off the back of Brisbane to continue at the end of the year. Although I must say I'm ready now for my break. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks for that, so that I'll take December off and have a break.
How important is that that off season for you?
Really quite helpful. It's almost like I then get to say on the 1st of January, I start a fresh new year and I come into it fresh, because I take 4 to 6 weeks of very minimal, very light training, and reset the body. I find we work it so hard and we've got to give something back. It's just how I find a positive in taking the time off, because I'm a little bit type A in the sense of I have to have a goal or a strategy, and like I always have something going, or always have some kind of idea of what I want to do for my planning. So it allows me to take the break, both mentally and physically. Yeah. And then I be with the family on the school holidays and that sort of thing.
So is your training program, or your training, like the way that you're setting up your events for next year, the same? So will you do Coast to Cozzy, 6 foot track, UTA? No, different.
I like to do things twice, because I think I get to have a look at something and then I get to try my best the next time. So for me, I feel like my preparation and my mental ability to do the race for Coast to Gozzy this year will be better than last year. It's the same for Brisbane. I've now seen the course, and hindsight's wonderful. Like I've never seen the course, and I did walk around with my sister, drove me to the checkpoints the day before the race. Having not been in Brisbane or not seen those areas since 95, like I had a general idea of where everything was, and and so she took me around and she said, this is what this looks like. It's nice to see what it all looks like in daylight and have a look. So when I raced Brisbane, it was nice to do it all and I really enjoyed it. But I would like to do it again, because then I'll be like, oh, I remember this. Yes, this is good, and there's some good bits coming up here, or there's some not so fun bits but good bits coming up here, or whatever, and where I can push myself. I guess I like to do it twice. So it's the same for UTA next year. It's not on my list. It is a bit of a stepping stone if you like the longer stuff or you like the shorter stuff. Depends what you choose. And I feel like the trails are so crowded on that race, because a lot of it's single track, or the bits where you can probably push yourself through faster, you're stuck in a row of 30 or 50 people. And that's what I've found the couple of times that I've raced it. And it was only this year. This year I got out. I did my best to get out in front, but I was in wave 2 as well. So I still had to get round 200 people or move through 200 people to, so I still hit some bottlenecks and did a bit of walking and, things like that. So, and that's the one thing with Brisbane, starting at 5 a.m, there's 50 people on the start line, and we were together probably for the first 5-ish Ks, and then it sort of manoeuvred out. And I was on my own most of that day, which I train alone and I run alone. So for me, it was perfect. I spent a bit of time with Jackie. We did, I think, 2 or 3 hours together and having a good old yarn. But other than that, then I sort of separated and I was off on my own until my pacer came in. And it is so runnable and beautiful. Like there was no bottlenecks. There was no points where I had to walk, or I was forced to get frustrated. I don't know. That first bit of single track through there was gorgeous, and everybody is keen because we've all been on taper. So everyone's sort of, I found that quite good. Like we were with people through there, but no one was holding anybody up. As you say, small groups coming out of there, I found that really manageable, and I really enjoyed it. And you start having a chat, because trail running is all about chatting to people, and you sort of, may talk or not talk or whatever, but there's a couple of people around, and I found that really enjoyable, that section. Now, I know there was waves, and I'm pretty sure I got an email to say I was in a wave, and I just remember them saying 100-mile runners ready to go, and I just went and lined up. So I went with the first wave anyway, but it was a nice start, and it was super friendly, and yeah, it was excellent. And there's not a million people, and it will get more popular because, like the course itself, everybody I tell, it's an absolutely beautiful runnable course. So, people are asking, what's this course like, and do you like it? Is it worth the travel for? Yes, it is, so it'll be bigger. Everyone will tell everybody, and you'll end up having to manage your next UTA or something. I don't know. It'll be huge.
No, so tell me your favourite part of the course, because I know which bits are my favourite.
The rainforest was so amazing. And actually, Jackie and I were in there together, and she said, oh, you're going to love this bit. And then I went through it, and I was like, yeah, I love this bit. It's amazing. Coming into... is it the picnic ground too? I liked the section, all that single track going in there through to the picnic ground. I felt that was really nice. I also liked, from there onwards, I was on my own, and I over the back and then coming into Dundas Camp. Is that checkpoint 4? Yeah, I enjoyed coming up and down. I enjoyed that section over the back there too. And yeah, I didn't see anything from the reservoir that was pitch black, but coming into the city was when I was looking at the race and having a look at where it went and trying to put my old cap on to familiarise myself. Oh yeah, because I used to do endurance riding as a kid, and we did a lot of endurance rides around Kenilworth, like all up and around there. And I just remember knowing the towns. And I remember thinking, oh, coming into the city is going to be my favourite part. You know, being in the city on a Saturday night when there's nobody around, or if there's people around there, you know, having a good time, which I ran into a few of those. You know, I knew that would be my favourite as well. And I have to say, it didn't let me down. I enjoyed that. And coming up the stairs at the end, there was nobody there because it was 4 a.m. when I got there, even though my plan, I was getting in there at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. It was just my family, and I hadn't expected all of them to be there, and my kids and everybody else. I just thought it would be my sister and my dad coming to pick me up, and they're shouting at me, you know, and I overshot the finish line. I went all the way down to the end. So I went over the timing mat and then just kept running, and another 500 metres or something, and my pacer said, no, there's no more markers. I think we should just turn around. So I turned around. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it goes way past the stairs. I don't know. I remember looking at the map. So I went a long way down, another half a K down, and then turned around and came back. And my sister's like, get up the stairs. So I bolted up the stairs, and I just remember that feeling, you know, it was really fun coming up and around the top too. So I can't pinpoint one. I quite liked a lot of the course. It's, like I said, it's one of my favourite courses that I've done.
So you plan to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I had to go and start another race at 5 a.m. So I couldn't be there for you. So massive apologies. How did you know how fast you're going to go, or were you just so far ahead, or you didn't plan for sub 24? I thought you must have planned for sub 24 hours.
I was sitting at work and I was going over the plan. I'd looked at previous races and it was 27 or 28 hours. I couldn't remember, but I remember thinking, yeah, that's probably doable. I can aim for that. That you know, that's probably within my scope. And then it was not until, you know, 2 days before, and I was looking back at some of my training runs, and I'd done some really good training runs with quite a lot of elevation. And I sat down with my husband. I was like, I wonder if I could push it up a little bit and make myself a little bit uncomfortable. I tend to be quite conservative when I plan things, because I think, what if I have a bad day? And if I plan for this and I make it and go over it, I'll feel good. But if I don't make what I planned for, then I'm going to cry and, I don't know, complain. So, and he's like, well, why don't you push yourself? Because you never, you know, you push yourself, but you never aim for something. You know what I mean? Like he just give yourself a nudge. And I said, all right, well, we'll make it 25. And I went through and adjusted my plan to 25. And then when we were driving up to Brisbane, it's a 9-hour drive. And I was like, actually, you know what? Let's round it down to 24. I'll see what I can do. I'll just see what I can do. And so I adjusted all the timings, and I sat down, and so my sister, has nothing to do with racing or has nothing to do with running, and has never crewed an event or done anything. We were staying at her house, and I said to her, right, I need you to crew me. This is what I need you to do. You know, I need you to pick me up here or drop me off here, or make sure my husband gets to the start line. You need to be at my finish line. You need to pick up my pacer who has to come in, and you need to pick him up then at the end. And so I just sort of gave her all these jobs, but being in logistics, that was right up, you know, she enjoyed that. And I said to her, this is my plan, and this is where I'm going to be at these times. So I'm going to stick to these plans. And she was like, 24. Okay, well, that's okay. Because I don't know, we all just thought I was just stupid. But anyway, I gave it a crack and felt good because I came in 30 minutes underneath that. So
no, it was fantastic. I was blown away. I can't, because I'm race directing, I just kind of let everybody else tell me what's going on all over the course. I didn't even look at the GPS trackers. But like, how beneficial were the GPS trackers for your support crew and people? That meant that your family knew exactly when you're going to come up, so they could get your kids out of bed. And
you know, I track myself, so I always know where I'm going to be, and if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'll try to be there. But for her, I had no phone service. I knew that there was spots where there was no phone service, and I said to her, so I can't tell if I'm coming in or not coming in, and you need to keep an eye on this. So we ended up, she put it on Facebook to my friends, so everybody who everyone who follows my races, they're all on there too, and everybody sent 50,000 messages at the end of the day. We're watching you, this is where you are. And I think it's great because it allows everybody to be part of this. It's not, because we're a long way from home, and so we don't have our friends or people who would normally come and be around us when we're doing things like this. And so everybody was involved online and watching that, and it was really helpful. And I think, nothing but positive having the GPS trackers. I think they're great.
Do you have a coach, or are you totally self-coached?
I think I would like a coach. I'm not an introvert, but I can be introverted, and I don't reach out. So even Brisbane, I stood on the start line of the run, and I stood at the back in the corner by myself, with my jacket, and no one knows who I am because I don't talk to people, because I'm afraid to talk to people. I don't know why I'm doing this, because it's only you and me. So I can cover that. I remember at Coast to Cozzy, I guess I wouldn't call it imposter syndrome, because I know I can run and I know I'm reasonable at what I do. But even at Coast to Cozzy, I stood at the back by myself at the start line of this race with 50 people who I just look at in awe and inspiration, because they're Australia's great runners. And then I realised, well, actually, I'm on the start line too, so it can't be that bad. But I didn't talk to anyone there either. I don't know. I've improved a lot in the last couple of years since 18, 19, 20. So this will be the 4th year of my running career, and that's it. So I've probably got mountains to improve. No, I don't have a coach. That's a long story.
That's insane. So tell me your story then. So obviously you're a smart lady. You don't get to the top without being, you don't get to where you are without being smart, because you have to know how to manage your body, how to plan your nutrition for a race. So how did you go from being a mum, right? Because you started after having babies, to where you are now winning 100 miles. Like, what were those key events or those key points where you go, oh my God, okay, I'm going to take it to the next level? And then
after my second child was born, I don't know if it's 20 years of nursing, or I don't know what happened, but I've always enjoyed multi-day hiking. So my husband and I, we went and did the overland track, and then we went and did a couple of other hikes down in Tassie. And I remember one of them, we walked the track. I think it's only 45 Ks. And then we ran back and then ran it. Like, we dropped our packs and then went and ran it. And I was not fit or running at the time. And I remember thinking, see, that is the epitome of happiness for me, is being in the bush or on the trails, and coming from living in the suburbs, not in the suburbs. Like, I lived out at Redland Bay when I grew up, and we had 100 acres and lots of horses, and I was always out with my sister, the one who crewed me for the race. We were always out on the horses. Mum and Dad knew we'd go out at 7 o'clock in the morning and be gone all day doing that. So I liked doing those things. And then in 2017, we were doing a hike in Tassie together, and we dropped the kids at the grandparents in Melbourne. From there, we had to drive home back to Newcastle. And on the drive home, I was a bit stiff in my back. I didn't really know what had happened. And by the time we got home, I couldn't get out of the car, and I couldn't put my foot on the clutch. And I winced and cried in pain out loud, which I'm fairly stoic and I would never do that. So I knew something was wrong. So I just did nothing but complain about it to my husband for 2 weeks. And he got cranky at me, and he said, if you're going to keep complaining about it, you need to do something about it. Because it just didn't go away. So for me, then, using my nursing background and my emergency background, I tried all of these things for this lower back pain that I had. And I did 6 weeks of Nurofen and Panadol, thinking that would settle everything down and I'd get this ability back. And I was walking like a robot. My back, I basically put myself in a position where I was obviously holding it all really tight to protect everything. And then I tried acupuncture and chiropractor, and weekly, or two times a week, had massages, and that would settle it down a little bit, and then keep with this Nurofen and Panadol. And to the point where about 4 or 5 months had passed, and my ability was so bad. My daughter was only 1 at the time, and I couldn't bend to pick her out of the cot. And I remember just crying every day and thinking my life was over, because I've always been reasonably active, or always just had this natural ability to believe in myself enough to go and do things. Anyway, I couldn't walk around the park. I couldn't push her in the pram. I couldn't get her out of the cot. So I went to the doctor and I demanded some imaging of anything. Anyway, I ended up having back surgery. So I've had a spinal fusion done, because he the first minute he saw me, I remember I couldn't walk and I couldn't work. So you can't do CPR if you can't bend your back, and you can't. I you just can't do anything. And my mental health deteriorated so bad. I hated life and I hated everything because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't bend over to pick something up off the floor, or, you know, like it was horrible. So I'm painting this picture of sheer desperation and horror. And that's what it was. I hated everything. Anyway, I ended up going to this guy who does not do surgery, and he is very conservative in his management. And he said, we'll try some steroids injected under a CT guidance, and we'll see if we can inject into your back through at the bottom of your back through in the pelvis there, and we'll see if we can free this up and work it. And he said, I'll give you 3 chances. So we did one and I got no relief. And then we did the second one and I got no relief. And I went back and he goes, how'd you go? And I was like, nothing. And he's like, right, you're getting surgery. I was like, no, I don't want surgery. Because I'd heard all of these bad stories about people who'd had back surgery and discectomies and laminectomies and everything. And he said, no, you basically my bone was rubbing on the bone, and then impact, like a no disc or anything left in there. And then it was giving me all the nerve pain down the leg and causing lots of other things that about on here. Anyway, we had this back surgery, and that was the end of September in 2017. So I put up with this thing for about 9 months and tried to manage it myself as best I can, have my surgery in September. I then did nothing but yoga 4 times a week until the 1st of January in 2018. And then I was like, right, I'm amazing. My back's amazing. I can do yoga. I'm so free. And I'm the only person I know out of 4 of my friends who've had not the same surgery, but we all had something happen within that few months, and they've all had negative responses to their surgeries, and their ability is no longer any better. And I came out of mine thinking, wow, I'm a new woman. This is amazing. And so I said, right, I'm going to train for a marathon. So I trained for a marathon, did Melbourne Marathon in 2018, and all I wanted to do was a sub-4 marathon, and I did it. So that was it. I can't remember the question, but the long story, nowhere, and I came from not being able to do anything, and within 9 or 10 months I ran a marathon, sub-4 marathon, and that's all I ever wanted to do. And then my husband once said, after that, he said to me, oh, why don't you go try out one of the trails in the local trails? And I said, no, I don't want to get my feet dirty. Yuck, I don't want that. He's like, yeah, go run some trails. You've done your sub-4 marathon, try something else. And I was like, no, my shoes, no, it's, you know, I don't know why I thought that way, but I know that's it is what I said to him a couple of times. And eventually got me out of the trails, and I've not looked back. I love it. And the longer the better. I just find that I just get stronger and stronger the further I go. And it's like Brisbane. I remember coming into the checkpoint an hour ahead of where I wanted to be, to checkpoint 4, and I was in my mind, I was like, "Whoa, lady, you are amazing." I was so impressed with myself. I couldn't believe I'd come into that checkpoint at that time, and then I was like, "Wow, this is great." And I did slow up coming into the reservoir because I was getting a bit tired. But then all of a sudden, I did it again from the reservoir down to Slaughter Falls. I just improved again and picked up my time, and just, you know, like Jackie came in 5 minutes behind me at the reservoir, and all of a sudden by the time I got to Slaughter Falls, I'm an hour ahead. Like I just thought, how did this happen? I just got stronger and stronger. And then going through town, I remember just thinking, no, I'm just taking it easy. I just enjoyed it. I just enjoyed that part so much that I don't know why. Just the longer it is, it's like women are amazing at distance though. You know, I think women can do anything, and anybody can do whatever they want to do. And if you want to do something, push the bar up and then go and achieve it. Nothing feels better than achieving something you want to achieve. I just think, mentally, I think I'm really strong, even more than physically. Again, physically, I'm like, I just want to stop. I just went and ran 35Ks this morning, and I didn't love every step of that. My back is a bit sore, and I've just had a massive weekend at work. But like, I found all the excuses, and they were coming in. And then at the end, I was like, oh, shut up. Just keep running. You're so strong. Just keep running. And all of a sudden, my splits just picked up to 5 minutes for the last 5Ks, because it's all how we talk to ourselves. I think has a very big part of it. I don't think it's a physical pain. I think it's mental. And I think we can do whatever we want if we just push those limits. And Brisbane showed that to me, because I've done a race with the same elevation, and I did it in 10 hours more. So I did a race 12 months before, a 100-mile race with 9,000 elevation, and it took me 33 hours. And it was almost the death of my soul. Whereas totally different race this year, and totally different feeling coming out of the race this year. Absolutely.
Did you use Jackie to push you along throughout the race? Did her being so close to you help?
Absolutely, because we were so comfortable as well at the beginning. Like you could tell, we weren't pushing at anything at all, yeah, I definitely think that's what made it a better race, because the one that I did the year before, there was only 3 women in it, and even smaller again. But I was 7 hours ahead of the next woman. But it's definitely made it a better race. Having people like I hate to admit it, but I didn't actually know who Jackie was before the race, and because I'm not going to race other people, so I'm interested in myself. Well, I guess it's more of I didn't think I was going to win the race at all. That was not. I go into the race thinking I need to beat all these people. I just go into anything I do and say, do the best you can do today and have the best fun day you can. And I remember the smile never came off my face during that race, because I don't love racing, but I love running and I love trails. So I do get all the pre-race nerves and then the nerves from running races. But if I just think about it as you're having a good day out and do the best you can and push yourself when you're starting to get a little tired, instead of saying, oh yeah, just walk because it's just another training run, you go, well, that's a race. Today's the day you bring that little bit extra and you do push yourself a little harder. But I think so I didn't know who she was, and we got talking and we didn't really talk about that sort of stuff. Neither one of us talked about our past or history. She was just a great girl that we just ended up having a good chat with. I remember thinking, oh, she's strong. She's sitting up here. Oh, cool. So at least there's someone there, so that'll push me along. I think having competition makes you work better. Well, because of the Midnight Starters, my crew, my mum kept saying, there's people ahead of you. You're not even in the lead. You need to hurry up. If you want to do it the best job you can, there's heaps of people out there. And I was like, there's no one out there. I saw 5 girls go out ahead of me and I've passed 3 of them. I actually, because Jen was in the orange top and I didn't realise she was in the 100, and she was in and out. As I came into the first checkpoint, she was coming out and we had a smile and a wave, but I didn't look at her bib. And I remember thinking, oh, there's a girl out there with an orange top. She's ahead of me. I just got to find her. And once I find her and go around her, I can relax and settle down. So the whole race, I was just like, oh, well, I've got another one to round up. I guess it just gives you something to break it all up into small chunks,
Next question is, how do you manage all your training, being a mum and then work?
So when school was on, always I have 2 days a week where they went to Ush to give me the ability to put in some training time if I needed to. So I work 3 days a week. So it ends up being most of the time it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And if that's the case, Monday can't be a big training day. So so I would get them to school and do a couple of Ks or a couple of hours, then I'd go to work. And then Tuesday, I started putting them in Ush on Tuesdays and always asking for Tuesdays off. So I tend to do most of my long runs go on Tuesday. And I try to do not one every week, but a 30 or a 40 or a 50, sometimes more. Depends what I'm training for and distance, and time. But I will do that usually on a Tuesday, and then school drop off at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. So I'll maybe do 2 hours on a Wednesday from 9 till 11. But every morning is a run pretty much. And then a girlfriend of mine, we started running on Thursday mornings at 5 a.m. About 3 years ago. So that's a nice one for Thursday if my husband's not on night duty or going to day shift. So as long as it's not one where I've got issues with carers, then we will we'll run at 5 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and then I'm home just in time for them to get up, and I sort them out from the school, and then I do all the housework on a Thursday.
Is there keys? So you've just said you've got a key long run. Is there ever other key days that you always have in your training program, or do you mix it up a bit?
Yeah, so the Thursday morning one I do with my friends, always my easy run. It's his zone 2, very easy. So we just talk the whole time, and we get a bit of elevation. I think we get 200 or 300 elevation in that run, but it's always very easy and at chatting pace. So I find that's one of my easy runs. Monday tends to be my easy if I've come off work. Tuesday's my long run, and then Wednesday I either do a hard trail or I do hills or I do speed reps and intervals. So Wednesday tends to be the best I can do after the long run day. And if I am too tired on a Wednesday, then I'll take the Wednesday off and I'll do that Friday morning. So it's Wednesday or Friday that ends up being something. So there's always a long run, always an easy 1 or 2, and then usually something difficult. So whether I'm if I'm doing a run with elevation, if my long run is on the trails and it's got 3,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 elevation, then I'll stick to, simple intervals, 10 by 400s or something like that. Maybe I think it ends up being about 12 Ks, and I'll make that day the easy one, but I'll do that on the Friday and have the Wednesday off. But if I just did 70 on Tuesday, but it was mostly on road and flats. There's not a lot of elevation. So then I was able to push it around and do the best I could last week. Like after that, I not hills. My legs were too tired after that. But I did my speed stuff like later in the week. Yeah. Yeah, there's a bit of a formula, but I'm also so casual. This is why I said I probably need a coach, because someone could probably get more potentially out of me, I think, if I was a bit more focused in what I do. But I find if I can just sort of get a few easy and a bit of hills or a bit of trails in a long run, I'm going to tick all the boxes somehow, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like you're listening to your body though. And that's like, and a coach would say exactly, you're doing everything right. Like you wouldn't have been able to get to where you are right now without doing it right. Yeah. So do you cross train too, or is it always just pure running?
So you sent through these questions to me. I read them at 5 to 12, and I said to my husband, because I only just got back from my run, I said, I'm gonna have a shower, have a read through these and tell me. And he burst in laughing, and I said, what are you laughing about? He's like, oh, there's a question about cross training. Straight away the answer is no. Make sure you don't lie. He always says to me, you need to go do strength work. I'm like, at what time? And when am I going to do that? I'm not going to find time for that. I probably should find time. And I was like, well, my trails and the hills I do, that's strengthens the legs. Can't do a push-up to save my life, but I don't know, I can carry shopping. There you go. But he tells me all the time, it's probably another reason why I don't have a coach, because they would tell me and I would defy them. But I probably should do cross training or something.
Post your back injury, right? You were doing that yoga. And so do you still keep that up now?
I would like to. The issue is availability of time with the girls now. Like they're 5 and 7, but they're not old enough to stay home by themselves. So my husband is full-time worker. He works 12-hour shifts. So he is away 2 12-hour day shifts and then 2 12-hour night shifts. So that would take, I'd like to have it as a regular thing if I was going to do it. So I'd need it to be at a 9 o'clock class or something, and then because I work at 2:30 and my roster is also dependent on when his falls. So I work around him being the part-time worker. There's no regular time for me to do it. So I guess I could do it on my own. I'm just making an excuse. But at home, and I do a little bit of stretching, and I lie on the mat for half an hour, a couple of times a week. But as the rehab for my back surgery, when I did the yoga, I made sure. So like I said before, I'm quite type A and whatever. So I had set myself this goal: I'm going to do yoga 4, maybe 5 times a week, and 5 if I can, time dependent. And so every morning, because I wasn't running at that stage, I wasn't allowed. Every morning at 6 a.m. I did a yoga class, and they just told me what I had to do. And the hour and a half, or some of them were 60 and some were 90, and that time went by so fast. My strength improved amazingly and my flexibility. And I wonder if that's how I propelled myself into being able to run so well straight after that. But if I wasn't running and I was just doing yoga, I would make it my priority and I would fit it in. But I want something just down the road, but I want someone to say, do this, and I do that.
What was your nutrition plan for the 100-miler? Like, how did you manage your nutrition hydration for the day?
Everything went to plan, and everything was, so I map it out quite thoroughly, as I do with all of this, because I can't cope with any solid food ever. So if I was to race a marathon, I can't cope with solid food, and as a 100-miler, I'm the same. And I have spent the last couple of years trying to encourage myself to be able to cope with food. So sometimes I'll go out on a run, it might only be 20 Ks, and I'll take a honey sandwich and I'll try and eat it at the start. But I always just end up having a stitch 5 minutes later, and I have to walk, and then I feel uncomfortable, and then I have to stop on the side of the road somewhere in the bush somewhere 3 or 4 times. Like it doesn't work for me. So actually finding Tailwind without pushing a particular brand, but liquid hydration and liquid calories is all I've got basically, and coffee. So I use non-caffeinated Tailwind, and I mix it at 2, and depending on how hot the day is, sometimes 3 per 500 ml. And I'm careful then to take that with another litre or 2 of water. So all day, my plan the whole way was just Tailwind. So start with a shot of coffee. That's what I feel myself at 4 a.m. when I got up, because I'm a nurse and that's what we do. We just drink too much coffee. And then nothing before I think I may have had a banana that day just to put something in my tummy, but otherwise tailwind all the way through. I took a can of Coke at the first checkpoint just for a little extra sugar and another bit of caffeine, because usually by 9 o'clock in the morning I've had maybe 4 cups of coffee, but all not have tailwind. And then sometimes I'll take a little extra sugar. I find that I don't need the salt tailwind provides, but I do need the calories. So I still take the calories, and then I'll end up leaching all the salt out in my hatch. So I always make sure I'm getting enough water. And then shapes, bickies. The barbecue shapes, I put them in little Ziploc bags up to 100 calories. So instead of taking a gel, which is 100 calories, I'll have, 15 or 20 shapes in a Ziploc bag, and they'll be what I'll use for that hour on top of my water or tailwind. So I'm pretty strategic. Like I nut it all out and I stick to the plan. I tend not to go off my food because it's all liquid, and that, one little bag of shapes every 5 or 6 hours is all that really I can cope with. I remember saying to Jackie, she's in there having a muffin, and I was like, oh man, I just want to eat that muffin, but that's never going to happen for me. I'm not going to eat that muffin. And then ginger beer is also another favourite. It's so cold and it sits so nicely in the tummy. So if it's really hot or you just need the sugar but not the salt, a good swig of ginger beer and fill the tummy up. I find I can run on a full tummy of fluid, just not food. And no, always liquid. And the other thing is the protein rebuild. So I use 2 of those throughout the race as well. So yeah, there's not much into my strategy. I just know where I stick to, between 150 and 200 an hour, depending on the heat, water, and throw in 1 ginger beer, 1 Coke, and 1 rebuild. So
you've just got to figure out what works for you, don't you?
I guess having that knowledge of knowing how the salt and the sugar balances out and what's required. And I know if I wipe my face or the sweat and it feels a little bit salty, I know I've had too much salt and I need to then go with water for a bit and then use something sweet to keep the sugar, keep the calories in, but not so much the salt. And I'll go an hour where I'll try not to have any tailwind, but I'll use a lot of water, because then if you're starting to leach out the salt, your body's trying to get rid of it, and then you're not going to hold in the water. You end up dehydrating. It's a fine line, but I guess I know the science behind it, so I can tweak myself what I need, if that makes sense. So it's
I sometimes I look at ultra running as almost like a first aid assessment on yourself at all times. And you being a nurse, we would definitely be quite in tune to what you need at any given time. It's like a total scan of your body every half an hour before you go about to take something.
As long as you learn as you go, if something doesn't work, make a change the next time. That's the one thing because we get these preconceived ideas. We know we need to eat. We know we need calories. We know we need salt, sugar, everything, and so you can't run on an empty fuel tank. Your car doesn't go, it doesn't work. So everyone gets in this mindset of they've got to take these calories or whatever they're choosing. So I remember doing a race where I was like, 50 calories an hour, that's going to be fine for me. And I just got nowhere. And so the next race I tried 100 calories and got nowhere. And I tried 150 calories. I was like, so that's actually my sweet point. And if I try for 200, I just end up dry retching or vomiting in the corner because it's too much calories too soon, or so you've got to feel it out and you've got to change it up and make the changes. And I did a race once where I tried to put too strong a tailwind in my mix, and it did not go down. It was terrible. And then I ended up having 20 Ks of no nutrition, and it was at the beginning of a race, and it was terrible. And then I didn't change it and I didn't fix it, so the race just went terribly, because I didn't evolve from it. Well, and it's not until, because I always do a good reflection on most of the races that I do. I'll do a good reflection of what worked, what didn't work. If I was to do it again, what would I improve? What would I change? How would I fix this? Did I get chafed? Do I need to wear a different shirt or whatever it is? And nutrition's one of the big things. I go on about this at work all the time. Don't worry. They all about me I can talk about this subject for ages. They're like, we don't talk about running all day. I'm like, sorry, not sorry. But when I said to my husband, he's not really been a runner for long, and it's only in the last couple of years where I've started doing long stuff, and he'll tack on with me, and he'll come with me, not very often, maybe he gets out once or twice a month, but I'd see him mix up some tailwind. And I'll be like, well, how come you get to have 3 and I only get to have 2? And he used to say to me, mind your own business, do your own thing. You know what works for you. This works for me. And I'd say, well, you shouldn't need 3. 3's not good for you. And he'd say, you do you. I'll do. He's also 85 kilos and a lot bigger than me. So he needs all that. And it's not until I think, just mind your own business, do your own thing, know what works for you. And you're right, try and remember it. Or even I write it all down from a nutrition point of view, and I write down if I made the benchmarks that I had initially set for myself for that race. And I think how I felt at certain points, like in checkpoints, like I think to be to you, and I think coming into checkpoint 4, I felt so strong and I was just ready to go and tackle that. From there onwards, I knew I was 85 Ks down and I was like, I am feeling strong. I'm feeling really good. I feel like I want to take the vest off and open up a little bit. And it's such a great course because you can run it. It's so runnable. And I came into that checkpoint. I'd initially put my time down, I think it's 5 p.m. and I got there at 4 p.m. And I'd rung my sister on the back of the mountain. I was like, mate, I'm an hour ahead. I can feel that I'm going to be an hour ahead. I'm out of water, so I just need to get to that emergency aid station down the bottom, scull a litre of water, and I'll be up the hill and I'm going to lose service in a minute, but you guys need to be there at 4 because I can tell that's what's going to happen. And I came up, it just felt so good coming up through there, up from after that. But I just remember thinking, well, next time I do that race, I can move my marker when I do my plan to 4 p.m. there, because I know that I did that really easily to 4 p.m. And I was like, well, we'll see what I got next time. And
checkpoint number 4 for me as a race director, that's usually where everyone wants to pull out because they've come up that awful climb.
I love that climb. That was hard. And I put my head down and I was like, I couldn't believe you guys put that in so early in the race, but it was fantastic because you just stomp away at it and it was so good. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
You guys would have been coming up there also because if you're coming up there at 4 p.m, right, that would be kind of getting to a bit of dusk too. So I'm guessing the view would have been amazing as you came up the top there. You get like a little bit of a sunset starting to start. And as you're running back over the back of Woboy. Okay, so when you were going up a climb, were you watching your heart rate or were you just going by feel? Like how do you, we just making it you stay comfortable?
I am all about the data and I do like to self-analyze everything. Ask my husband. I'm a pest. But the problem is I migrated to a Sunto 9 a few years back and it is so big for my wrist that the heart rate monitor doesn't work and it just picks up my cadence. So I'll be chuffing along at a zone 2 doing, chatting comfortably to my friend on a Thursday morning and it says I'm doing 200 and I'm like, yeah. So I just take no notice. And it was, so I used to rely really heavily on all the data before. And then now I just think, you know what, you're fit enough. You can, go up the hill and I just think continuous forward motion. Just keep plodding along and I never look up. Never look up. Don't look up. Passing, I think his name was Joffrey. He had a kilt on, and we were coming up the back hill, and it wasn't dusk yet. It was actually after the checkpoint that was coming. Like it started getting dark after that checkpoint, but before that checkpoint, we're actually in the heat of the day, and we had the sun. And I remember looking up, and I was like, oh, he's just plodding along, and I was like, yeah, I want to go up around him and pretend I'm doing this super easy, So I went past. I was like, hey, and he had his headphones in though. I don't run with headphones. So I had no music, no headphones, and I was just like trying to talk to anyone. And every time I saw someone up ahead, I was like, oh, just go up to them and have a chat. And then actually from coming up the massive back, the hill I'm talking about. And I have a little bit more undulating, I think 2 or 3 more Ks to come into that checkpoint. And I passed probably 5 or 6 people walking up that hill. And I was just, I don't want to swear, but this is a minefield for anybody. If you see a runner at 85 Ks running past you, I was like, yeah. I was like, that fight came in there feeling strong because I was like, I just passed 5 boys who are clearly doing it really tough. I don't feel like it's that tough yet. But I was looking forward to the shade. I was starting to get a bit warm by that stage. But
yeah. Once you go down Mount Glorious, which is a picnic ground after the rainforest, you drop down and you are in that western sun there. It is quite warm. So how, we set off those 100 milers before you. They were the plus 30 hours. Did you love the fact that you knew that there was people to run down out there?
I hadn't even thought about it until I started seeing them and I realised who they were. And that's when I thought, this is amazing. So every time I passed, I was like, guys, you're doing amazing. They had already been going through the night and that is hard when you're midnight. Like, so I just looked good on them, and I passed a couple of ladies who were doing it from midnight, and I was like, you are a weapon, get in there. And they were like, yeah. It was so nice to see them. And it is good to have people on course, because it's not enough that it's going to, you know, there's not too many people that you have to be in a lineup, or you're going to get stuck behind people, and yet there's someone it's kind of like someone to look forward to, or there's somebody, that's great. And you know, it was excellent.
Yeah, I think because quite often you wouldn't see, you know, the gun runners out, you know, because you are out the back. So it means that, you know, they get to see, you know, people like yourself or Matt Crehan and running past them. And
all day by myself, I was with Jackie probably an hour and a half just at the camp, at the picnic area, just coming into the picnic area, and then we separated. So I did the whole lot around the back by myself. But when I picked up my pacer, it was like, fresh, having a good chat. And you know, and that's when we got the beautiful sunsets going up, then a couple of really good steep up and down, coming out of Dundas. So when you started all of the, like when we started going up there, I remember thinking, I just want to stop and get my camera out and turn around. It was an orange sky, and there was the birds overhead, and I just remember thinking, now this is why I do this, and this is why I enjoy this. And I think we stood at one point, and I said to him, I got to stop, got to turn around. And we stopped, and we turned around, and we stood in the middle of this hill, like a halfway up it, I think. And we just stood there for about 5 minutes. He's like, this is why you do this, isn't it? I was like, yeah, this is why I do this. It's amazing. It's beautiful out there.
So did you pick up your pacer from 85? I think it's 85 Ks for want of a better. Is that where he came in?
So I rang my friend who lives in Ipswich, and I was like, I know you're not trained at the moment and you're just doing short track work, but any chance you want to pace me at this race I'm doing? And he's like, oh, no, but I've got a friend who might help you. I can't do it. So he gave me this number, and I remember saying to my husband, I don't want to ring someone that I don't know. I can't mentally, I can't cope with stepping outside. And he said to me, well, you're going to have to do it or you can't run. So you need a pacer. And so I made the phone call, and he was amazing. And it turns out the long stuff is nothing for him. I'll just come in at the 85, because initially he said, I'll come in at the reservoir. And then he said, oh, no, bugger it, I'll just meet you at checkpoint 4. Why not? And I said, so you're gonna do all of that? And then when we got to the reservoir, oh, no, we got to Slaughter Falls. And I said to him, do you want to do the whole lot? What do you want to do? You tell me what you want. I just need someone from Slaughter Falls. This is all I need. And he's like, no, I'll come in earlier. I'll come in a bit earlier in the night and help you through the night. And then he's like, but I'm not going to do the whole lot. So I ended up finding somebody else to meet me at Slaughter Falls, who I also met through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. Like, it was convoluted, but this was all the hookups on Friday afternoon before the race on Saturday. And I hadn't met Mark, and I'd only met Paul the day before. You know, and anyway, he ended up starting at 85, and he came through with me to the reservoir, and then they, you know, shook hands, swapped over, and then I said, hi Mark, how are you? And met this guy Mark, and then he and I did the next 20 Ks together. So if my paces were available to me next year when I come up, I would use them again. Because, you know, you just said it yourself, so Coast to Cosy is a race that is mandatory paces, and I did not have my stuff together in time to sort out paces last year race. So I ran majority of the 240 solo, and it's not until you do the summit from Charlotte's Pass up to Mount Kosciuszko and back, I think it's an 18K loop, and that is a mandatory safety requirement to have a pacer because of the way the weather goes when you're up there. And so I had a girlfriend from work who was not a runner, and I trained her to run 15Ks. Coming into BTU, I knew how beneficial having a pacer was, because I'd never had one, but I'd seen it working for amazing. If I was like, so the way I would approach it next time is if they're available to me, I'm going to do it again. Exactly the same. That on reflection is not a part that I would change of that race. They were amazing. And having fresh company and someone to set a pace, yes, it's so beneficial to your race. If I had not learned that for myself in another race last year, or what I watched it happen around me, and I watched my splits be excellent, and then just drop off as we got towards 200 Ks and more, and watching other people's not drop off. And that's when I thought to myself, so I'd never had experience with the paces until your race, and I now understand absolutely how beneficial they are.
So tell me about your greatest achievements. You know, what was your other amazing achievements?
I don't really have any. No. I set myself a 13-hour goal for UTA this year, and that was So my goal was enjoy my day, try and get under 13 hours and try and be in the top 20 women. So that was my goal for UTA, and I did do all of those things. So I really enjoyed my day. I took it easy. I ended up coming in 7th. I was absolutely stoked. And as I crossed the finish line, the guy on the mic, you know, he sits there and he goes like, oh, it's the first of the old ducks comes across the line. I was like, hang on. Obviously, because all the girls who came in before me are in their 20s or low, you know, and I was like, but again, so that I was first in my age group, which was super, super nice for the women over 40. That was nice for me because I've never really put myself as someone who's a front runner or front of the pack. Like I know that I'm top 15, top 20%. I've never put myself at the front. So it was a really nice validation, I guess, for me to do a good job at that race. But yeah, I was only, I think I did 12 hours 56. So I was only four minutes shy of my goal. But hey, I met my goal. That was great.
No,
so, like when I thought about that, that's why I moved my plan for BTU on the Thursday before the race from 27 hours to 24 hours because I was like, God, just give it a go. You know, what have you got to lose? Try hard. Because my husband said, stop being mediocre. If you want to do a good job and you want to try hard, why don't you put it on your plan?
It was actually quite handy that you did change your goal. Do you know why? The best time was actually a time that we had to adjust because that particular female that year didn't run a section of the course. So then we gave her a 2-hour time penalty. So the record should be 2 hours faster. I'm not taking anything against you, but it's important that potential that you did change your goal. Do you get what I mean? Otherwise, there would have been too much competition. You know what I mean?
Anyway, because you think Jackie's still, like second place was still only an hour and a half after me. So without me there, she would have still done that, I think, anyway, because she had already done it. So she had some experience to push on. She had experience to learn from her first time to improve her personal goal. So regardless of me, I think she would have achieved her goal. And so for me, I've set a benchmark for myself now. Now I just have to do a better job than that next year. For your second place male was Nicky Bamford as well. Like I know him from Coast to Cozzy from last year, and he is amazing. So when I saw that he was there as well, I was like, oh mate, this is going to be a good, challenging day. People are going to be out there, and I was like, oh, I want to try and catch him and say, hey, do you remember me from last year? Which clearly that was never going to happen, but that was something I was like, oh, what if I run fast enough? I can pick up with the boys, you know. So I thought it's nice to have competition in there, and it's nice to yourself. And so it's quite multifactorial, isn't it? I don't know if we, as women, I think people don't, like I think women are going places with trail running, and I think women are amazing athletes and endurance athletes at that. And it's the more I learn about it and the more we all learn about it together that we realise that a lot of women are coming in not far behind these guys, you know, and because like I think it's an old school mentality where the boys should always be doing amazing and we sort of second. So I did a 100 miler last year, and it was similar elevation to your race, but not as runnable. It's a totally different event, and you know, a lot of it's like it's not as fulfilling, I guess, in a way, to be able, like for me, I wanted to go back and do it again, but I don't know how much I'd be able to change through because it's so technical and a lot of it's single track, and it is 9,000 elevation. It's a difficult race, but you know, for me, I'd sooner, like right now, I think to myself, I'd rather go back to BTU, look at what I did last year, work out where I can chip away and mentally have a better day. Like I just think it's all about, I know I've done it now and I can, you know, like analyze it and improve it. And it's about getting better and pushing yourself that little bit further. And I'm only learning this as I go because I am reasonably new at all of this. But the body can do whatever we want it to do. It's like you just saying there, even though that things happen to you, still can be 9, you know, and then the following year you're like, well, actually I could do that with that. And that was a hard day. So this year I'm going to do even better. Like, and it's all about improving and pushing yourself. I think we can do so much. I'm so pro women in endurance. I think, you know, ever since my back surgery, nothing will hold me back now because I think I have this ability to do this, and I'm not going to waste another day. And I spent 9 months not being able to do anything and not picking up my child and I remember every time I think something's hard, I think back to that and I think, this is not hard. This is not hard what we're doing. So if you're tired right now and you want to walk, I remember coming into checkpoint 4 of UTA, and I was like, I'd miss my nutrition feeling at checkpoint 3. Like And I knew I ended up going to be 300 calories short or 400. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll just keep pushing on. And I could feel it in my body that I was not loving it at the end, and I knew it was a calorie deficient. And so when I refueled at 4, I was like, mate, give it everything. Just give it everything you've got. And in my head, I just kept saying to myself, just do the best you can. Surely you've passed 10 women, because coming from wave 2, I knew I was like, I figured I was the 40th woman. And I was like, surely you've passed 10. Let's just count off 10. Let's just get 10 to get us to the top 20. And I just picked them off. And mentally, I was just like, no, there's another one. Off I go, round I go. And it's just drive and motivation. Thankfully, what I lack in physical ability, I make up in determination.
Look, I know Coast to Cozzie's up next for you, but is there's any other races leading to BTU next year?
I haven't 100% decided yet, but I have my eyes set on Larapinta.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the week after UTA, and I purposely did not buy a ticket for UTA because, as I said, I've done it twice and I want to have a go at something else. And I thought I have toyed up with the idea of doing the full Sonda Monster, the 230, but I'm sure physically I'll be at that position by then. So I'm tossing up whether I just do the one from Ellery Creek, which I think is 128, but that'll be because I want to run out there and I think it'd be amazing. So it'd be nice to see something different. And that will give me great preparation. It is a lot more, it's quite technical. I'm not sure how runnable it is or if it's more technical than runnable, but that will set me up nicely for BTU, I'm sure. That's probably all that's on my radar between that and then BTU next year. I'm hoping this year with Coast to Cozzy that I just give it my best and then I feel complete with that as well. So I'm not sure that's somewhere I want to go again. I just want to do a good job this year and be happy with that. BTU, and then I'm not sure. So just the 2 next year at this stage.
Yeah, well, they're quite sizable events. You probably will do the Larapinta Trail and then, not have to do too much before BTU and just rest and recover and away you go. But how much do you reckon it is, because you do analyse it, that it is the key to your success?
I think so, because I also believe that running, or specifically long distance running, is 90% mental and the other 10% is in your head.
Yeah.
It's not physical. Anyone can do it. I don't want to minimize it. It's not that anyone can do it. If you say, so I just think from 4 years ago, I couldn't walk around the block. That's how I think about it. I think if I can get from there to here in 4 years, and now look, so this year's been my best year yet, and push myself better or harder and use paces, improve. And I know that I will regardless, because I have put a plan together and I will push myself. Do you know what I mean? I think if you want to improve, you've got to look at what went bad and what went right, or where you think you were being a bit soft on yourself. Or I think about BTU. I didn't overly stretch myself at all until mentally I started falling apart mentally coming out of Spartan, just coming off the hill after sort of falls. But it's because I'd switched over to caffeine and it just didn't work. And only thing I had with me was the caffeine tailwind and a litre of water in the back. And so that's when I went off my nutrition. And I went a little bit into a hole, but I take that on as well. I don't get afraid of having a bad moment, because I always think this too shall pass. And I think that's fine. And I remember saying to Mark, the guy I only just met, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing great here. This isn't working for me. I don't know what the problem is. So let me just adjust myself. And I was out loud having this conversation with him that he had no input into, where I was going through the motions and explaining I was like, maybe you need to run behind me. No, maybe you need to run in front. Maybe you just need to be 10 meters ahead of me. Maybe you need to run beside me. Maybe I don't want me because I'm feeling like I want to stop. I just actually really want to stop right now. And then we came out, and as we were coming down Latrobe, that's when it picked up, obviously because it's downhill and it's easy. But then we saw some people who come out of a pub, I'd say, and were having a great time. And they're like, what are you guys doing in the middle of the road? We were crossing at the crossing, coming into Latrobe, and Mark, this guy, goes, this is the front runner of the BTU 100-mile race that's going on right now, guys. Give her a cheer. So they're all like, woo, in the middle of the street, in the middle of the night on the Saturday night. It was hilarious. And it just gave me a bit more strength and motivation. I picked myself back up mentally, and I was out the other side of the dull bit, but it was really quite funny. I can't remember what I was saying.
It will be a very interesting race, and you just never know whose day it's going to be, I think. And that's what makes it so exciting.
injury, the accidents happen too. So someone might roll an ankle and that's it. There was one spot I did that out the back on the backside before that first side break, I think it was. And I ended up stopping. I stopped and I dare not undo my shoe, but I was thinking to myself, I think I've done some damage. I've got to think about this. And I was in trouble. It's the same ankle that's sore now, would you believe? But I mean, it's not from that. But I remember thinking, I'm just get myself to that checkpoint, and I sort of walked out a little bit and grit my teeth, and it ended up being okay. Thankfully, not an injury, but I remember thinking that could have cost me the race, or that could have, and that could happen to anyone because it is all trail. It's easy. That's on the road.
I didn't ask you, did you use poles?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a pole event.
Yeah, I picked up the poles at checkpoint 1. No, when did I get them out? I'm just trying to think. I think I had them in my quiver the whole time, just in case I wanted them. I didn't use them though until after the 43 Ks. But actually, there was a couple of people around me and witness to this massive fall I had. There was a real boggy patch. As soon as you come out of that first checkpoint.
And then you're talking about Fernland's break, which turned into a mudslide.
Yes. So there's this hill you went down and it was a mudslide, and the mud was like, a foot deep. And this is where Jackie and I were together, because we came out of that checkpoint together, and this is where we stayed together for about an hour, and then we separated after that. And she said to me, I was just like 10 meters ahead of her, and I was like, oh, bugger it, I'm going first because I'm not afraid of the downhill. So she was like, oh, and there was one other fellow with us. And I just went A over T, and I went full down, like my back was covered in all up my back. My gloves, I had long sleeves on because I feel the cold. So gloves, all the sleeves covered in mud. And then as I got halfway down it, somehow I flipped over, and then it was all over my front. And so they were pissing themselves laughing. And Jackie goes, man, I wish I'd filmed that. And I was like, I just thought, anyway, I was covered in the mud, and the dirt was from my knees down at the front, and I'd done a bit of damage to the knee. Like I could see the blood coming through, and I was like, oh, well, that'll dry soon, whatever. And it was, I think after that, when I was like, right, I got to get the poles out and use the poles and on spots like that. And I didn't use them all the time. And sometimes I just put them together, and I'll hold them together out in front. It gets my arms out, so lets some breeze come through sometimes. So I'll use them different ways, but walking or doing the hills up the back there, coming into them would have been checkpoint 3, from through up to checkpoint 3. I used them coming up those hills, but that fall was so funny. Ended up, if you ever look at the finish line photo, you can see that I am covered in mud, and it's from that one fall. But my back, it was so funny. Everything was wet and just dripping big globs of mud. And so I was like, you know what? I don't care what I look like. And as I was running, everyone's like, oh, yourself. I was like, it was so bad. So I was making a bit of a joke about it. And then once it dried, I started it turned to dry mud. So I started dusting it. And I managed to, as I was going along at some points, once it had dried, dusting a lot of it off. But my back, my shorts still had this caked on mud, and my knees down are all caked in mud. It's just that one fall. It was not funny at the time, but about 5 minutes later, it was super funny. Yeah, I think having good runners in the field, or knowing there's people out there who are great runners, I think it just gives you the ability, if you want to be up there with them, then you need to push yourself, and that gives the competition between everybody, then improves not only the race, but it improves the individual outcomes as well. And like I've said it 50 times, but the BTU course, the miler course, is such a good runnable course that you have the ability to get out and give it a good go. Like I think it's just been put together so well as a good mix of a single track, which is runnable, and there's the 5 trails which are runnable, and then coming through the city at the end is amazing anyway. But it's you can, if you have international runners coming in next year, I think it's just going to be amazing. So I must admit, I'm not a great climber. I'm just a head down, bum up kind of girl. I just figure as long as I don't stop and just plot away. I just, plot away up the hills, but I am good at the downhill side, and I do enjoy those. I didn't use the rope on Township, actually.
You didn't need to.
Because it was really good underfoot. I did have a slide, and I only probably slid half a metre and regained my step. without it, but I don't mind the downhill, and I don't mind, like, I think we got straight to the bottom of that and had to go straight back up, which was a killer, but you know, that was a good little hill. That was a good hill.
Yeah, that was when I lived up Mount Nebo, that was my 10K loop.
I don't want to train on it, but it was great in the like coming. So Paul, the guy who was pacing me, he knows it. That's his back. Like he runs around Lake Manchester. He does a lot of stuff just slightly out west from there, coming from Ipswich. But he's like, "Oh, you are going to love it." I think he was being sarcastic, but when we were there, like he said, "Just keep going. This is where it just keeps going like this, up and down." And I remember just thinking, yeah, he says, it's beautiful in the daylight. If only you saw it in the daylight. So obviously, knowing it's your training ground, this is why you love it. But I mean, I only saw it at the night time, but it was brutal but fun. It's fun.
I think that sums up the BTU. Brutal but fun. In other words, like, it's good that you found it runnable. That's all I could say. And you were skilled enough to run it.
Yeah, I love it. Like I say, the uphills, it's not my strength, the uphills, but I know a lot of people find that they don't like the downhill, whereas I'm not afraid of the downhill. And that's what I think it comes down to. And that's where I can make gains, because I'm not afraid of a downhill. Yeah, but there's lots of up and down.
Yeah, so you kicked ass.
I'll thank paces for that. And again, like I said, on reflection, that's where you learn the benefit of paces, and anybody worth their salt will bring their paces in next year, because, you know, they know, or if they've got experience enough, they know that's what you need. You need someone to give you a pace, because when you're getting tired at the end of something like that, the race on a miler does not start till 100 Ks. You know, you get yourself to 100 Ks and the race starts after that. And that's where he didn't let me down. I wasn't getting tired until coming out of Mount Cootha. That was fun. I would have liked to see that in the daylight as well, because there's a big hill coming out after you cross the road. I think there's a nice big hill on the other side. I would like to see what that looks like at the daylight, because I remember that being horrible, and I was tired then. I think I had 2 stops on that for about 10 seconds. And I remember looking down, and I was like, I had my poles, and I was like, and I shined my torch up, and I was like, oh, God damn it, it still goes. And then I was like, no, just shut up, let's keep going. So I just, you know, and I think I did that 2 or 3 times, and I was like, that is brutal. I need to see that in daylight.
Yeah.
I need to see that in daylight.
Yeah, it was crack up, because the course just doesn't stop giving you hills until the end, and then we give you that bloody stair climb.
Stairs so easy though, because the finish line's just up there. So mentally, you're like, mate, this is it. All you got to do is get your ass up those stairs. Like I've got, my sister videoed me coming up those stairs, and I vlogged it up those stairs, and I couldn't believe that. But I think, you know, but it's like you said earlier, you always leave that little bit for that last kick at the end. So my sister, go over the tiring mat. Anyway, whatever it was, but I ended up, the plan was to meet him at 2 o'clock at Slaughter Falls, and we ended up moving it to 1 o'clock. When we went through Gold Creek, my sister's like, "No, you're doing it so well." And then the guy who was with me at the time, he rang my sister, and he's like, "No, we're well ahead, and she's powering. So you're going to have to go and wake up Mark and tell him to drive up now." So she ended up waking him up before his alarm went off at 11 to get him up in time. Like it was, you know, it all worked. That's what she did amazingly. You know, but yeah. Unbelievable how we got in the middle of the night.
Yeah, we'll just do a shout out to Brisbane Trail Runners, because sometimes you can jump on that Facebook page and you can find people. And then now we've already set up the BTU 2022 community page. So then discussion forum, so then people can try and find each other or put their hands up, because I think it is a way that we get new people into the sport as well. So.
Well, you said it before too, even if you, or maybe I read on something from you where you were like, you know, if someone's, you know, we're handicapped by 140 Ks. If you have someone who's new to this sport, or, you know, it's only going to get bigger and better. If you have someone that says, oh, you know, I don't think I could run a 100 mile, or I don't want to race a 20 or a 30 or a 10 or whatever, but you know, come and do 20 Ks with a person who has 140 Ks on their leg, because there's no pressure. You really come along for a chat, and you can decide then if you like it or not like it, but it's fun, and you get to do something meaningful and purposeful, you know. So I think it's great. You know, like I said, it was only that I learned it at last minute, when otherwise I had someone I was running with, and so it caused me a little bit of angst and stress at the time, but I found people in 2 days, you know, the community is amazing, and having the there, and so many local trail people, you know, the Brisbane Trail runners and stuff like that. People will put their hands up for stuff like that because it is fun to be part of, and it's great to pace someone who's it's fun. It's good. If I wasn't racing it, I'd love to pace it. If it was my local event and I wasn't in a race this year or next year, you know, I'd love to be involved in some way by either volunteer at one of the checkpoints, or I would love to give back to the community. And when I'm done doing what I want to do, like yourself being race director, I don't want to do that. That's too big for me. But go and, you know, I want to man some checkpoints and tell people how amazing they are, or I want to be pacer and I want to help out and give back to the community some way. So it's nice.
Oh, look, that's a beautiful way to finish up, I reckon. Yeah, so lovely. And look, massive thank you. I can't thank you enough. And this is going to be a fantastic interview. So massive thank you.
You're on a great cause, and I'm excited to come back. Awesome. I look forward to seeing you guys next year, and I'll put the hard work in and make sure I give some competition to the people who are coming up. So I'll look forward to that.